Here we go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Getting Ready for Daycare, 3K, or Preschool, a sponsored webinar from Vivvi, Childcare and Early Learning. I'm Carla Weiss from Preschool Parents, and I'm so happy to welcome you today. Congratulations for taking time out of your busy lives to get some wisdom from some very, very smart people. I just want to remind you that we're recording this webinar. So if you need to step away for any reason, if you have to tend to a child or get a bite to eat, you will not miss one pearl of wisdom from our speakers because you will be able to watch it when we send the video to you. Any resources that are mentioned tonight will be sent to you as well, along with any links and the presentation. So please don't feel like you have to take a million notes. Please don't feel like you need to click on things or look for things. Tonight is just for you to listen, and we're going to try to keep it to 1 hour. During the webinar, if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A. Please look for it right now. If you haven't been on Zoom all year like I have, you might not know where it is. I see some people are already putting questions in. That's great. You haven't even heard what they have to say. You're brilliant. Please put them into the Q&A and we will answer them in order during the Q&A portion of the webinar. If you chat them to me, I promise I will ask you to put them into the Q&A. Please only chat if you have some kind of technical difficulty. All right, I am ready to get started and tell you a little bit about this webinar. I want to let you know that we first met Vivvi Childcare and Early Learning last August when they sponsored a webinar for Preschool parents on returning to school during COVID. In that webinar, they told us about their experiences opening their doors to the children of first responders, working with New York Presbyterian Hospital on COVID protocols. It was mind-blowing. They were able to share all those protocols with us, all those checklists, everything they learned, and our parents could take them to their schools and make sure that they had this top-of-the-line information. I fell in love with them then, and I'm so pleased that they offered to sponsor this webinar on getting ready for daycare, 3K, and preschool. Vivvi sets a really high standard for taking care of and educating young children, and I'm so excited that they're going to be sharing their wisdom with us tonight. I am ready. I'm so ready to welcome Lynne Mueller, the head of learning at Vivvi, and Gretchen Richer, head of family experience at Vivvi. And they are going to do a presentation for you, and then we're going to answer all your questions, and we're going to pick their brains until they're dry. Okay, so take it away, Gretchen and Lynn.
Wow, that is an intro of all intros. I have chills just thinking about a year ago when we started partnering with Preschool Parents, and just really thankful and grateful for their support and grateful for inviting us to this wonderful community to speak about something that's really close and important to our hearts. Love to share a little bit about what I do and talk to you about Vivvi at a glance, and then introduce my partner in crime tonight, and then we'll get started. My role at Vivvi is that of head of family experience. Really, in a nutshell, that is a role that allows me to work very closely with our school teams for two different main buckets to make sure that we're providing parents with all of the tools and the resources that they need to make sure from enrollment to admissions on to exmissions, or when they leave us for another journey, that they're feeling really supported and feel like they have all the right information to make it a seamless process. And then we work really closely to make sure that every moment in your life, every moment in our family's life is met with a celebration and meant to be a very individualized approach to your specific journey. Vivvi, in a nutshell, is an early learning and care organization. We are focused on children from 0 to 5 years, and we're in our toddler stages. So we are a little over 2 years old. We started our first brick and mortar campus in Tribeca a little over 2 years ago, and have 3 campuses in New York: Tribeca, World Trade Center, and Hudson Yards. And then last year, through the pandemic, really wanting to focus on meeting our families where they were, literally, figuratively, emotionally, all of the ways we've brought our care and learning model into our families' homes. So think about a program on campus, taking all of the curriculum, all of the care, all of the learning and support, and bringing it into the home nationally known. So we have a year-round schedule, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We are offering care and learning for children from 6 weeks to 5 years. And again, our campuses are located throughout the New York area. So excited to help support families that are out there looking to talk more on this important subject. And for that reason, I'll turn it over to Lynn. Tell us who you are and what you do, Lynn.
Thanks, Gretchen. Hi, I'm Lynne Mueller, and I am the head of learning. And my role is to support teachers and children on just ensuring that we just always deliver that high quality curriculum that we always talk about. And, you know, as Gretchen mentioned, we also have, besides our campuses, we have in-home programs where we just bring the same Vivvi way of doing things into the homes for those families that want in-home care.
And Lynn, you're very connected to this topic. Obviously, my counterpart here in my photo is my 3.5-year-old. So being a mom, having gone through this, my child is at Vivvi twice a week. And I went through some separation moments. I went through the transition moments. And Lynn, I know that's sort of how you got started. So if you could share that with us as well.
So I have to tell you, so I wasn't in the early childhood world when I first got out of school. I worked in television. Then my child was, I guess he was about 18 months. He was starting school. And I could not separate. I would have anxiety. I couldn't. And I would say, you know, he would go, bye, mommy, bye, mommy. And I didn't want to leave. So the school said, you know what, Lynn, why don't you go help out in another class? Because you're really great. I knew nothing about early childhood at that point. So I went into another class and I literally fell in love with the whole early childhood world, went back to school, quit my job in television, got a second master's, and I'm still here in this preschool world.
So all that to say is we've gone through it as mothers. We spend our careers helping families go through it. And we hope we'll leave you with some bite-sized, real digestible go-tos to think about how you're preparing and also come back to as resources as you go through this process. We're so happy to be speaking to you tonight and sharing some perspective on this really important milestone that was important and emotional even before COVID and even before this past crazy year, and now has so many other layers and nuances because of it. We hope you know you're not alone as parents, and we're all going through these milestones together and trying to do what's best for our families. So thank you for showing up and really trying to do what's best for yours. We hope after this session, you'll feel more confident, empowered, and armed with some strategies to tackle heading into school successfully. And a lot of that starts with just kind of digesting this idea of anxiety. We all are walking around with anxieties today, and we'll try to help you unpack that a little bit, both for you and for your child. A lot of that goes into practicing before the big day, and Lynn's going to really talk through some things to think about right before the big day, but even going back a couple weeks to start thinking about how you can plan what to expect and what to ask as far as regarding our communication processes or protocol at your school or at the program that you're starting. We can share some tidbits about what works at Vivvi, but also give you some tips on what to ask for your own program. Tips for commuting, for drop off, and that first month of transition. Sometimes you see the transition all at once on those first days, and sometimes the transition pops up in surprises through that first month. So wanting to give you some examples of what you might expect. And then certainly, as Carla said, we'll be following up with resources to prepare for your child's first day. So hopefully you can keep referring back to them and put them in part of your childcare toolbox. So I want to talk a little bit first about just unpacking the anxiety. There were so many wonderful questions that you sent to us in advance of this seminar, and there was a theme of anxiety, and it's very realistic and very out there. And thank you for just sharing that this is an anxious time and a big milestone that shouldn't be discounted. I think it's really important first to separate or to kind of understand what is the adult anxiety that's coming into play and what is the child anxiety. And I would venture to bet that most of the anxiety that's happening around this process is really on the grown-ups at this point. some of the anxiety that might come up for your child or your toddler is that they have no idea what to expect, right? All they know is the rules and the routines of family life. But for you as parents, your anxiety is different. You might be feeling uncertain about the care that your child may be getting, or uncertain that there's just no way that a child can give you, that someone can give you as much love and attention as you have been for all of this time. You might be worried about the feeding schedule or the nap schedule. You've worked so hard to establish it, and now someone else is going to come in and think through it. Or you might be thinking about how different it's going to feel without your child. So what does that feel like for you? I think being able to separate your own feelings from your child is the first step. And then really dealing in a way with those anxieties and those fears is a way that you can put your own oxygen mask on first before you can prep for your child. So I think understanding the what around your anxiety is really half the battle. Last week, we chatted with cognitive behavioral therapist and book author Elise Dobral-DeMarco. Highly recommend. She has a book out called Mom Brain, and she is a mom herself and really breaks down ways to tackle anxiety. And one really helpful idea she taught us was to think about, are your anxieties big stuff or small stuff? So small stuff worries are really revolving around your own personal life. Will my child have a meltdown when they get to drop off? Or, have I packed all of the right things to make them, feel prepared for the first day? Or some of those bigger anxieties, what are we going to do about COVID? How are we going to deal with this new pandemic that's coming about? Or, all of the social unrest. I think it's important to first say these are anxieties and they're important, and those worries are all important, no matter what if they're bigger or they're smaller. But when you start to unpack where they're coming from, then you can start to really put a list together of what you can control and what you can't control. Are you generalizing? If because one day your child had a meltdown when you tried to do date night, are you now thinking every time I leave my child, I'm going to have a meltdown at date night? And that data might not hold up in the end of the day when you're thinking, well, maybe this is going to be his or her reaction, but not necessarily. Consider the evidence, what you can control versus what you can't control. Think about how you'd manage that worst case scenario. And then start to think about how you can tackle those anxieties. So thinking about putting schedules and routines. If control means packing a bag or delegating or using your partner to help ease the load, start thinking about how you can put a plan in place to deal with your anxieties. Don't worry alone. Make sure you're expressing your feelings to your friends, to your partners, to your family members. And remember, you're doing the right thing. Now, how can we give you some tools to really tackle that anxiety, but also prepare? Because part of the preparation is really taking back a lot of control of the unknown. So part of that is thinking about how you can partner with your school. I think it's really important to know that you can ask what the communication, the health and safety, and the day-to-day expectations are before starting, as well as ongoing. I think as many programs are starting soon, we recommend that you ask for an opportunity to meet either virtually or in person if possible with the head teacher or the teaching staff that's going to be in charge directly for your child. Additionally, though it's not mandatory, it's also really helpful to engage with school leadership or administration. For instance, our heads of school on campuses are always ready to engage about information on curriculum, on health and safety, and on our communication plans. I think it's really important to ask for a family handbook or some kind of guidebook if you haven't received that in advance, to really ask for that forward thinking. A health and safety plan, certainly COVID guidelines. And then I think it's also important to help make sure you understand what are the expectations around communication. For instance, at Vivvi, we use a communications app that allows us to regularly text back with our families, send them photos, send them pictures, do a daily activity update, really helping our families feel like they are truly a part of the experience, even though they're not able to come into the school. So starting to ask those questions about how and when will your school be partnering with you as far as getting that communication out there. Will it be a phone call? Can someone be available on Zoom? Are you able to touch base before or after school? I really loved example that Lynn shared is to think about all of the things that you hope that you want your teachers to know about your child and be really transparent about them before they start. Whether it's through onboarding paperwork or during virtual meetings, share as much information as possible and also that relevant information so your caregivers have a really accurate understanding of who your child is so that they can help anticipate your needs. Lynn, would you want to share anything on that, on what's been helpful receiving information and some of the questions that maybe you've asked?
I mean, I think the most important thing is being as honest as you can about your child. I mean, teachers have heard it all and they're not judgmental. So, just anything that, it could be the favorite toys they like. It could be when they get upset. It could be, when my child twirls their hair, it means I have to go to the bathroom. I mean, it couldn't be anything, but all of these little and big pointers that you share with your teachers and the school will be so helpful. It will really help your child adjust to school.
For sure. I think too, if it is okay to ask every question, and if a school can't answer it, then I hope they will come back and follow up with that answer afterwards. I would not wait for them to bring that information to you. So please feel free as a parent that you have the opportunity to ask questions. We say that no question is too small. We want all of our parents to feel like coming into our program, they have all of the information they need. They've got all of the questions answered, and they have a point person that they can call or chat with if they need. Part of what will be successful about your child going to school is really about you developing trust with your educators, with your program administrators, and having them develop trust with you right back. So establishing that communication style and being frank and honest with your conversations will help right from the beginning. I think it's also a really great point that if your program has a parent resource, someone who's kind of been through the process already, a great person to ask and really give you an authentic explanation of the school, an authentic experience. We have a lot of Vivvi families who are ready and willing to share advice and perspective, having already gone through it. So if there's an opportunity to connect with your school and be connected with a parent community, they're often the people that know the tips and tricks and secrets, and then can also calm your fears a little bit because they've been through it as well. So you're dealing with your anxiety, you're trying to unpack what you can control and let go of some of the things that you can't control. You've really done your research on the communication, health and safety protocols. You've asked a lot of questions and feel really prepared. Let's start thinking about what to do before the first day. And so we're going to walk you back a little bit to think about the strategies to support your preparation at home. Lynn,
Thanks, Gretchen. So, as Gretchen said, this is a milestone. If your child's going to daycare, to pre-K, to a nursery school, this is like a big deal for them. And, it's important to treat this experience as a process. Don't think like the day before school, you'll say, okay, we're going to school tomorrow and get everything together. It really takes a lot of prep work. Of course, if you have an infant or a toddler, you're going to probably do most of that prep work. If you have a preschooler, then your child will be involved. So I just thought that I would sort of do like a countdown of, school and when to start doing things. So I guess most of you probably are starting school in 3 or 4 weeks from now. So what I suggest is that you start thinking about the schedule of sleeping. Adjust your child's schedule gradually. Like you can do like 5-10 minutes every night. So by the time the first day of school comes around, they're going to be rested, they're going to be energetic. And also you should sort of readjust your schedule, because it's not just your child that's got to get up in the morning and get ready and go to school. You also are going to be participating in that process. So that's something, start early and your child will be ready to go.
Sounds like then you're thinking about being rested, but you're also thinking about the fact that you're probably all getting out the door way earlier than you maybe have ever done consistently as a family before. So you're also getting some sleep in order to wake up early and be ready for the day.
Exactly. Because it's more than just getting dressed and going to work. You've got to get your child dressed. You got to prep everything. So, and then you've got to get to the school, however you're doing it. So that's what you should start with. Now, if you're starting school before, if you're starting school in a couple of weeks, you just move up this timeline. It's going to be fine. You just start now and your child will be adjusted to rest and everything else, and you'll be adjusted in a couple of weeks. So then about 2 weeks before school starts, this was one of the questions that, came up, and thank you for those questions. The question was, when do I start talking to my child about school? Not too early. And this is why. Young children have a different sort of time. They don't understand time like we do. They have different perception. So if you said, to your child, okay, in 1 month, we're going to start school, or in a few weeks, they don't really understand what that, first of all, they don't understand what that means, and they might not even understand what school is. So, I know you want to talk about it with them, but really just try to hold back and wait 2 weeks. And if you're having conversations with, your partner, try to do it, without your child around, because kids have big ears, even little ones. When you start these conversations, like anything else about learning or emotions, books are the perfect tool. Literature is just a great way to sort of have your child and you dive into the topic, see what the other characters do, how things work out. I know at Vivvi, we have a list of books that we recommend to families that they can read before the beginning of school. And we will send that out to you beforehand, and that will help you. And your child might have questions. Now, they might not have questions right after you finish the book. They might have questions at night, but that's okay. And one thing I do recommend, don't read these books all day long, because it's like, okay, I've got to read books. So, just once a day, read a book. It's light and breezy. When the book is over, put it away and just get on with your day. If your child has questions, if they have concerns, they will come to you and ask you at probably the oddest times sometimes. But that's what it is. And also, this is about 2 weeks before, you should go shopping for that special backpack. Now, I promise you that they're going to have different fashion sense than you do. Just close your eyes, whatever they decide they want, that's fine. If your child is, you're going to be packing a lunch, then get to have them involved in, picking out that really great lunchbox. 1 week before school starts is sort of when the work begins for you and your child. So you might say in a very cheerful voice, next week, you are going to be going to play in school. They still might not know what that means. So you can say, I wonder if they have blocks there like you do at home, if they like blocks, or if they like trains, or if they like dolls. Then you can say, we'll know next week. If your child's ready, I'd say, I don't know, around 3 years old or so, you can also make a 1 week calendar timeline. And every single day, you can put a star on the day that's finished, or you can put a smiley face, something. So they have, because children really do well with visual cues. And this way they can see how many days left. They can help you count down to the first day of school. Also, take a walk by the school. Even if your school's open, they're probably not going to want you to come in. Take a walk on the outside and say, this is your school. If you know your teachers' names, mention them by name, even if you've only met them virtually, because that'll start that bonding and connection. Many schools will send home photographs of the teachers. If your school does that, print the copies of the pictures out and post it somewhere at eye level that your child, in a high traffic area like the refrigerator, that your child can start bonding. And if your child seems really interested with their teachers, you could even have them, make a card for the teachers for the first day, or draw a picture, or, or if you have a communications app like we do, you can possibly even send it over the app. Then the night before, this is always like, there's a book called, I think, School Jitters. So lots of people get jitters, you will, and maybe your child will too. So the one thing is, if you have the jitters, keep them to yourself. If you have an infant, so you'll have to do some prep work the night before, put the extra clothes in the bag if they, and also for all children, if you have to label the clothes, make sure you have enough bottles. Do as much as you can the night before so you don't have to scramble the morning of. Also get their clothes ready. Now, if your child's old enough, you should have them get involved with clothes selection. Now, you might have thought this perfect outfit that would look so cute the first day of school. This is not something to have a battle about. Let them wear whatever they want. I'll tell you a quick story. My younger child, of course, I wanted him to be a fashionista, but he loved this Mickey Mouse shirt. It was a pretty, I don't know, it was an okay shirt. And he didn't just wear it for the first day of school, he wore it for the first 6 months of school. I had to wash it every day, and that was okay, because sometimes clothing gives children a sense of security and like comfort. Also, don't dress them, if they don't care what they're wearing, please don't dress them in some fancy finery of, that you think they'll look so cute in. You want your children to be comfortable. They're also going to get messy. And if they come home with paint on them and they're dirty, it means they've had a great day. So just, keep it really very casual. Whatever they wear at other times, when they go out, have them wear that. If your child's taking lunch, most children love to cook and prepare food. It's not cook, it could just be a sandwich. So get your child involved the day before. Say, what should we have for lunch? Figure out, go to the supermarket, order online the foods that they want, have them help you pack up the lunch and put it in the refrigerator. Also, what's really nice, if you can put something special in the lunchbox that your child doesn't know about it that day. It could be a little smiley face. It could be like a little note, something that will bring joy to your child. So they will know in the middle of the day, oh, mommy's here, daddy's here. Look what they put, even though they don't say it. Also, the night before, make sure that you don't change your routines, because that's really important. So whatever you do, they have dinner, they take a bath, you read stories, do the same thing. And so they have a really good night's sleep. So they're really fresh and ready for the day. And of course, as Gretchen said, opportunities, if you have a list of classmates, see if you can have play dates. And also what I don't think parents always think about, just like your children are going to make friends, you're also going to make some really new and great friends. My two best friends I met when my kid was 4 years old in preschool. So if you have an opportunity to connect with, potential, families who are coming into the school, besides talking to families who are in the school, you should start doing it, because that's going to be sort of your resource, and you'll be able to partner with them and share information as your children grow and develop together. And I think that is it about before the first day, and then the first day of school. So this is, one thing is make sure like they have a good meal in the morning, and they're not cranky. And then when you get to school, this is the hard part now, okay? Even if your stomach is doing like flips and you're anxious, you need to stay calm on the outside. Children are really perceptive. They'll probably pick up on it, but be as calm and collected. If you feel you're not going to be able to do that, then maybe have someone else in your family, a partner, a caregiver, let them do the first few days of school. I know that it's important and you want to see your child go to school the first day, but you know what? When you take your child for that first day, you'll have the same exact experience. Also, if you,
Lynn,
yes.
Do you mind going a little bit deeper in the good goodbye, a little overview? And families will send this, which I think I keep thinking back on the resources that have been really profound for me. And Lynn has sent something called the good goodbye. And so she breaks it down into some of the goodbyes that maybe we don't think about this, but what does a good goodbye mean? And can you just go over the 5 types?
I will.
Of goodbyes? Thank you.
So once you have your comfort item and you're feeling good, then you've got to say goodbye. So how are you going to say goodbye? There's all kinds of ways. So I'm going to go through some ways that you probably shouldn't do and like the best way. So first, there's something called the wishy-washy goodbye. You probably know this. It's like, okay, are you sure it's okay if I go now? You're really sure? Because, if not, I can wait a few more minutes. So what do you think will happen with that? What is your child going to say? Your child's going to say, oh no, why is mommy or daddy being so, wishy-washy? And of course, they're going to say, no, you have to stay. So no wishy-washy goodbyes for any of you. The other one that, I see this all the time with parents. I call this the slow and painful goodbye. Oh, come give mommy one more hug. I'm sure I'm going to miss those hugs. And I know you're going to miss me so much. Okay, I'm going to go now. One more hug. So, when you're about to leave, you basically need to make the decision to go. However, when you make that decision, another thing you shouldn't do is say, okay, it's time to go to school. Just say goodbye. I'm going now. And then just walk out. Because I call it the commando goodbye, because that is really a difficult way for children to sort of ease into the day. Like they need that, little transition. Some parents think that, my child's going to cry. I know my child. I think I'm just going to sneak out. Well, most schools will tell you, you've probably heard this, do not sneak out, because we really want children to understand. Remember, this is a milestone. They need to understand that they're going to say goodbye to a loved one, and then that person is going to come back. If you don't give them the opportunity to say goodbye and give a hug and a kiss, what can happen is they will get anxious, and then you'll have to start way back from the beginning. So please don't do the sneaky goodbye. So the best way, so how should you say goodbye? So this is ideal. Just show some assurance that, you're going to be in good hands, to say, oh, Miss Gretchen and Miss Carla, they're so wonderful and they're going to play with you today. And then you say, and this is the whole thing you say, I'll be back when school is over. See you then. And then you walk out the door. That's really hard, but that is the best way. Even, and you might hear there might be some tears, but that's just an expression of what's going on, and it's okay. And I know, like when I've seen that in schools, once the parent leaves, in 99.9% of the cases, in 5 minutes, the crying stops. The child sort of gets involved with an activity and they're fine. And remember, they have their comfort item. They have nurturing, loving teachers, and they're ready. The other thing that's really important is this whole thing about consistency. So how you say goodbye the first day, you should always say goodbye. Children like this structure. I'll tell you like a story. I was in a school and I hadn't seen this child for a while. And I said, oh, you're so big and I just love your shoes. Now, every time I see her, and this is months later, the first thing she does, she looks at me, she smiles, and then she shows me her shoes. Children love that predictability. And the other thing is pickup time. It's really, really important that you pick up your child at the designated time. I would even suggest come 10 minutes early, because it's much easier for your child to be the first one to leave than the last one. When a child is the last one to be picked up, they get a little nervous sometimes. Like, where's all my friends going? Why didn't my mommy come and pick me up? So please, please, please just, put a reminder in your calendar. And if you can't make it on time, of course, things happen. We know that it happens. If, you're going to be late, at Vivvi, what parents do, they just let us know so we can talk to the child, and, and so they anticipate that mommy's going to be late, and that's it. And, milestones are full of emotions. Be prepared for emotions from you and your child. But I know that you will get through this really with flying colors.
I love this, Lynn. I love the good goodbye. I can't wait to share it with our families. This idea of a comfort item and consistency and structure. And even though it can take some time, both for you and your children, developing that consistency and that structure will only in the end make for an efficient and positive experience. And then also, I would say you've done all these things. It's okay if you have to throw it out the window for a second. And number one, it's a big milestone for you as a parent. So perhaps that first day, maybe plan on not knowing how to feel, whether you're feeling on top of the world, whether you're feeling terrible. Give yourself some space. Maybe don't book a meeting right as you get into the office, but just take a minute to be present and honor the feelings that you're feeling, and know that this is a great milestone for you. And then, be able to have a support system in case you need to cry to your mom, or you need to cry to your best friend, or you need to celebrate it. Hopefully there's a person that can help celebrate that moment with you.
And also, I just want to say one other thing. So let's say, you follow this and you get through that first day and it is perfect. There is absolute everything. Child loves this. It's fine. You're feeling great about this. I mean, you might be feeling sad, but then expect the unexpected is all I can say,
Yeah, I think that's a perfect thing. You can do all this planning, and in the end, it is actually wonderful planning, because you're going to put all of this consistency and this structure and this practice into play over the course of the next month and into the next year. That structure is really going to save you, and that consistent goodbye is really going to save you. But I would also be prepared that if it's a really successful first day, it may not be a successful second day. If it's a successful second day, the second week might go to pot. And I think it's good to just be open to the fact that every child's transition is different. My child was amazing at drop off, in that, in my eyes, he was amazing in that there were no tears. He quietly went in. There wasn't really any look back. There was, okay, I'll see you. And then we slowly realized that his way of exerting control over the situation was that he was going to go on a hunger strike. And so he didn't have snack and he didn't have lunch, because in his eyes, mommy was going to come back after lunch and after rest. So if I could expedite this whole situation by not eating, then that will get me closer to the rest time, then I'll get me closer to mama. And so then we had to have a conversation to say, well, you know what? I really love it if when I'm going to pick you up after rest time, but why don't we try eating today? Because that'll give you lots of great energy and that'll help get you to the day. And he had to come by it on his own time, because I think if you are the parent of a toddler or a preschooler, part of it is really establishing control in their environment of their new situation. And so you might see certain things go out of whack. And oftentimes it's because your child is just really trying to exert control and understand the situation. And that may look like a child not eating for a couple of days, which, by the way, he's totally fine. He rocks out a lunch. But he also went through another transition later in the month where I heard through the grapevine that he was crying, or he said, he cried a couple times today. And then one day on the way into school, he said, Mommy, I don't think I'm going to cry today. I said, wow, buddy, that feels really good to hear. Thank you for that. So for the first day, the first week, the first month, be ready to celebrate the wins, and also just be open to the fact that your child is processing this in their way, and that might look different. So be prepared for changes in naps, or potentially eating, energy levels. Think about you going back to work over from being off on the weekend, it's tough to get through that day and you're tired at the end of the day. Well, now your child is going to school where they are playing and their play is their work and they're exposed to new friends and new people. And so their energy level at the end of the day might be down. They might cry at the end of the day on the way home because they're adjusting from one space to the next space. Doesn't mean that they had a terrible time. It's just now they're processing a new schedule. Routines and schedule is key. And so as much as you want to maybe push that bedtime later or push that mealtime later, to try to hold on to that structure and consistency, because children will certainly thrive through that. Preparing each day the night before. I'm going to get off the phone. Where are we right now? I'm going to get off this webinar and then go right into the lunch routine for tomorrow and laying everything out in order. And I have it down to a science. It's probably going to take 20 minutes, but I know if I don't allot that 20 minutes every night, it can be a little bit of a snowball in the morning. And so just really having that space to prepare, making sure you're really delegating if you've got a partner, taking on the things that you know you're really great at and giving the things to your partner, knowing that they're really great at. Maybe they're doing the bath while you're preparing the night before, as well as if you can just kind of plan out the day for your own self. So what does the entire day look like for you? How are you going to tackle your day? I think as moms, certainly as parents, we put a lot of that to the side so we can take care of our child's schedule, but really understanding how you can emotionally prepare for your own day will then translate into how you're preparing for your child's day. So make sure you're taking care of your emotions too. Have a moment to be able to celebrate, have a moment to be able to have a cry or take a bath or do whatever you need to do to sort of recharge, but also acknowledge this amazing milestone and that you're doing really, really well in those steps. Lynn, would you share anything else? I know it's really top of mind for me as I'm experiencing it.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, this milestone is really important, but it's the first of many milestones that you and your child will be going through life. And, giving yourself the opportunity to figure out how to get through it and how to manage it, emotions are a big part of it, will help you later in life. I was just thinking when my son, he became a lawyer and, we went to the ceremony and he's a grown up, but again, those same emotions that I had when I was dropping him off at school when he was 2 years old. So, enjoy the moment though, because these are very special moments and you're going to look back and you're going to go, oh, I remember when, so, even though there's emotions and this transition, it's such a joyful journey. And I think all of you will just, you'll get something great out of it at the end of the day.
And for that, we know we have the amazing Carla who will be following up with you all, not only for this video, but if you've been quickly saying, oh, I wish I would have taken a note. Oh, I want to implement that tomorrow, with a lot of resources that we hope will be your go-to toolbox. And so what Lynn broke down for you on that prep list, starting a week before, 2 weeks before, a couple weeks before, really to provide you with a starting school checklist. So thinking about what to do before you start, the first day, the first month, etc. We love books at Vivvi. We use books not just for milestones like this, but really to capture every sort of teaching moment along the way. A couple of our favorites right now are a book called Will I Have a Friend? I know that's on the top of Lynn's list. My favorite is The Kissing Hand, which is a lovely story about a little raccoon that goes away to school at night. And so we'll send a lot of those books over to you to start reading. We've got some lunch ideas too, because we want to try to make this efficient for you and take the least amount of time to prepare and feel the most successful the next day. And so we have a former Vivvi mom who is a nutritionist who put together some lunch ideas for toddlers. And then of course, Lynn's amazing resource, The Good Goodbye. And so I think at this point, we are at a place where we've been talking at you for a while, and I think we'll bring Carla back to see if we've got any questions out there that have gone unanswered that we can help to clarify and give you perspective on. So Carla?
Great, we do. And if you wanna, you can stop sharing if you want, and we can see you a little bit bigger to answer these questions. That's great. We do have a bunch of questions. I just want everyone to know that we will try to get through all of them, and we'll try to end at 9 p.m. If we need a little bit more time to answer some questions, don't worry. If you need to go at 9, we will. You will get the recording with all the answers to the questions. So this first question is very much about transitions. This is someone whose daughter started daycare a year ago and did not have any trouble at all with drop off and adjusting, but then suddenly at 18 months, has started to have bad separation anxiety and has cried on and off for the last 2 months, sometimes lasting for some time. Now this year, the daughter is moving on to the toddler side, and the parent thinks that the daughter will be happier and more stimulated. But any advice on how to deal with these waves of anxiety, and is this common? Is this something you've seen?
You know, it is common. I mean, even if it's like next door, it does create anxiety. I would suggest to ask the school if maybe your child can go visit that classroom just for a little bit, so they get used to the classroom. That's what we sort of do at Vivvi. Children go to another classroom for an hour so they can start bonding with, you know, the teachers. You know, if there's new friends in that class, find out the names of the friends, see if the school can make sort of a book for your child. You know, we make a book of like our friends at school, and that having like something that your child can like look at, it's a book, these are my friends, then they take them home and they bring it back to school. So it's sort of a nice way to bridge the gap between home and school, the school environment.
Lynn, is that a natural age where separation can come up even if a child hasn't had a problem with that before? Or is the separation come and go?
I mean, I think it, quite honestly, it can be at any age. I think at 18 months, children become more aware of what's going on in their world. They also they think that they're in charge and they want to be in control. So it's like, you know, I don't really want to do this, and I'm big now and I don't have to do it. So yes, I mean, it is a developmental part of growing up for some children around that age, 18 months to, yeah, definitely is.
I imagine this anxiety of remembering what happened in the past. And for this mom, I just sent her a lot of those wishes that she's able to contain or control the anxiety that she must be feeling now, because I am very sure that it's going to be a better year. How many days before we should all start reading those books? I know it's in the checklist, but can you tell us now?
I mean, I think like 2 weeks before, you know, I mean, you know, I just think, you know, before that, it's not going to have that much meaning, and it, you know, it can create some anxiety. I mean, if you've started before, then that's fine. But, you know, as I said before, their sense of time is so different. So, you know, to make it like reality, to make it like, it's not the characters that's going to school, but you're going to school, you know, it's like becomes like, it's like a real thing. I would suggest about 2 weeks before school starts to start, you know, but what you can do, you can start laying them around the house, see if they pick them up. That's a good time to start.
Okay, and we'll give you that checklist. We'll send you that list of when, the Vivvi patented checklist. Please get any questions that you have in, because we're running out of time and I want to make sure we get to all the questions. So in this case, this is a couple, and one of the parents leaves first in the morning and the partner drops off the baby at daycare. Since daycare started, When the baby sees this parent leave, it makes her cry a lot in the morning, and then she cries again being dropped off at daycare. So this parent is asking for any tips on how to leave the house gracefully so that they don't start this chain effect.
I might suggest that the parent that has to leave early to like sneak out somehow, that the other parent like distracts the child, like put them in another room, sing a song, read a book, anything. So, because for a child, out of sight, out of mind. So if they don't see that person leaving, they might, be much better about the whole situation.
I don't know if this helps, but on days when my son right now is going through I only want to be attached at the hip to mommy, and daddy is just, he's around and I guess I like him, but mommy is the thing. I will make sure that I get up extra early and get out of the house so that there's no emotional confusion in the morning, and it's just daddy and they, whether he's upset about it or whether he's excited about it, it's a much shorter time period. And then he realizes, okay, this is our time together, and mom is just somewhere else doing her thing, but it's not about mom leaving. I hope that was helpful.
That's really helpful, I think. Firsthand impression, firsthand advice.
Maybe you can get some free time as a parent. If you get out the door early, you can get an extra cup of coffee.
Have a coffee before you get on the subway. And you have to drink with your mask on. Okay, this is an excellent question for everyone right now. Any thoughts on how to handle the first day of drop off for toddlers? The daycare does not allow them into school due to COVID rules.
We went through this when we started these COVID rules. We were like so worried, that the children were going to, have a difficult time, and if they're over 2, they have to wear a mask. First of all, children just adopt, they wear masks. And I think you just, wherever you are assigned to drop off your child. So we do it in like the vestibule of the schools, that's where you're going to do your whole goodbye. You're going to do your morning rituals. You're going to say goodbye and you walk out the door. It's hard because you're not going to be able to see the classroom. So I think it makes it even more anxiety provoking, but children, this is all they know. This is how they think it is at school. You come in, you say goodbye, and then you go into school in the classroom. So children are really fine with it. It's really the parents who, struggle, and you probably will struggle until you start developing a trust with the school, and that'll happen.
Yeah, I think we went through it in August. We're going to go through it again because we have a wonderful wave of new families returning to childcare in September. And I think it's a mixture of knowing reality and naming reality that the schedule is an adjustment, but also putting into play the consistency of the departure from a parent stage. And we have a whole class of toddlers that entered in August of last year who had various forms of separation anxiety from 1 day to 3 weeks. And I would say within a month, everyone was back in full swing. They had their consistent schedules. And now, even 3 months in, but now a whole full year later, they're none the wiser, and they're really, it's as if we had never shut down. And so I think for new families entering in, consistency, as Lynn said, that pickup, that drop off, if you can be consistent, because your child is really going to thrive on that known quality, that consistency in the drop off and then the goodbye, and then just being prepared that it is okay if you see tears and if you see them crying. Hopefully, if you're entering a childcare space, they can follow up with you either with a picture or with a phone call or with some form of communication. We try to do it no more than 30 minutes later that says, oh, they're doing great. They already found this toy. They're with their friend, some kind of space where we can let the parent know it's okay. They're doing well. Because I think that unknown is the most anxiety ridden space. So if you can build in communication channels with your teachers, that'll really help the unknown component of drop off.
Yeah. And I think just, just sort of really understand what the drop off policy is, like where you're going to go, how are the teachers going to come out and pick up your child? Is it going to be the whole class? Is it going to, like at Vivvi, we do it on an individual basis because we just feel children just need that attention. But if your school is just doing it everybody at once, that's fine. Just so you have a sense, so you're prepared. It's also, just like we want your child to be prepared, you're prepared who's going to be there and what's going to happen.
So you guys both talked about comfort toys or comfort items. In this case, the preschool has a no toys from home policy. What would you recommend for a comfort item in that case? Or how would you broach that conversation?
I might first ask the school if your child could bring a comfort item and put it in the cubby. Lots of schools do that. Lots of schools don't want the child walking around with it because then it's, the child will get upset. They don't want to share it. So I'll go ahead, Gretchen.
One suggestion that you brought up when we were connecting about this is if you can bring a photo in of the family. And I think a lot of childcare centers do that naturally, but to be able to have a photo, and a lot of times that's a really acceptable thing to hold if they need to, but certainly to be up where they can see it so that they know and they can think about mommy and daddy. It's one I love.
And also you can just leave something with them. You can give them here's a shopping list. At the end of the day, we're going to go shopping. So can you take this list and put it in your pocket? Mommy really needs it at the end of the day. So it could be something very purposeful, versus a stuffed animal or something like that.
Or like mommy's t-shirt, we're going to put it in your bag. Your bag is going to stay in your cubby, but I know that something of mommy's is in a contained space.
Right.
Okay, t-shirt, just like a cat.
Totally.
So in this case, there's a kid that will be starting a few weeks later than the rest of the kids in the class because she's a little younger. Any advice for this family?
Any advice? I think for your child, even though they're starting later on, it's going to be their first day of school. Like they're not going to know anything different. And, and I'm sure the teachers will welcome this child. There'll be a cubby for this child. The child will get to learn the routines and will adjust like the rest of the children.
Yeah, I think for us, we see this all the time because we have a rolling admissions. And so we have children who've been there for 3 years together, and we have new kids coming in a lot. And I think from the children's perspective, they're so excited to have another new friend that they don't really know the difference. And as Lynn said, time is sort of different perspective for them. So they're welcoming children, oh, great, I have another friend today. And they don't necessarily know how long they've not been around. So I think more for your perspective to just keep that consistency and know that your child will be supported and they'll have a lot of friends to walk into.
Yeah, I think it's different in the early childhood world than like elementary school, because elementary school, it's just, there's little cliques and they bond, but with young children, they're so accepting and open of new friends.
Okay, we just have a couple more questions. One of them is just a question about the fact that you had mentioned, please don't sneak out when you drop off at daycare or at pre-K or 3K, at nursery, but you could sneak out of your own house. Could you just briefly talk about the difference between the two?
Well, I think if a parent sneaks out of their own house, the other parent is there to, pick up the slack. It's really when they're, it's just a different situation. One parent's there taking care of them and it's fine. I think when they're in school, that's a brand new environment. Their home is just the comforts of their home. And, we really want to establish trust with, the child, because the child wants to know that someone's coming back at the end of the day. With the parent in the house, the child knows you're coming back at the end of the day. They live with you. You come back at the end of every day, but in school, they really don't know what's going to happen, and, they don't have a sense of time. So that's, I guess, what the difference is, and they need to be able to say goodbye. They're in a different environment and know that at the end of the day, a loved one's going to come back pick them up, and then take them back to their home. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, that's what I said. So proud of myself. Okay, so here's a really deep and incredibly, like, it's really important because it can happen, but this very brave parent says that their child is the 0.001% that actually cried all day for the entire time. And in retrospect, the family thinks that it probably was not the right daycare, but they would like to try again, but they're very hesitant. They know that their child is very sensitive, also a pandemic baby. And they think it would be good for the child to get some practice before preschool. Any thoughts for that? Any time in your long experience, both of you, where you've encountered something like this, and any way that you could give them some kind of success story or hope for the future?
Well, first of all, I think, it might not have been the right time. You might not have been ready as parents. I think when you find that, next school experience, you should have we talked about transparency, have the conversation with, the head of school. I'm really nervous. It wasn't a really good experience. I don't know why. My baby might need some support. What kind of support, are you going to give? Children do, as Gretchen said, within a month, there's not children are just engaged and they're happy, that the faces are familiar. Also with the, the next school, see if you can, connect with the teachers, if, you can get pictures. I think all these things are really important for your babies to start seeing, even though your baby doesn't totally comprehend it, the people that they're with. And I know if you give it time, but you've got to give it time. Sometimes it could be a little bit rough at the beginning. So, you need to find a place that understands that and say, okay, I'm going to let this is going to be a little rocky road for a couple of weeks. And then it does work out.
I would love to share quickly. I'm going to be so brief, but I also want to say to this family, if you ever want to connect directly with me on how to think about auditioning schools, I'd love to talk more about this, because I had done a daycare previously, and I wish Vivvi was around when my child was born, because I truly think that most of how your child responds to a childcare situation really has to do with how comfortable and how happy you are with the choice that you made. And whether it's a nanny or whether it's a group childcare situation, I was very nervous putting my son into daycare. I rationalized why I liked it, but I know in my heart, being in retrospect, it wasn't the right fit. And my child also was anxious, and it was the kid that cried every single time. And I don't think it was the right time, but I also don't think it was the right fit. And I don't think I was in the right place. So I have to remember there's a lot of things going on. I also I truly think that find yourself a childcare center that has those communication spaces and allows you to be the family that needs to ask all the questions and needs a follow-up the next day and needs a follow-up the next day until you don't need a follow-up anymore, and ask, what do you do when your child cries? And if they say, well, we pick them up and we give them so much love and we're there for them. And then if for some reason it lasts throughout the day, we're going to call you about it and we're going to have a discussion about it. And so I think you can be really critical and be very personal in the choices that you make, but also, like Lynn said, have real strong expectations about how you communicate, and ask all the questions you need to ask to feel really good about the space. And maybe this is now a better time and a better age for your child, but I'm happy to chat about this in further detail.
And I also think what's the school that's right for you might not be the same school that's right for your friends. And so this is really an individual choice. It sounds like you really know your child, you know what your child needs, and it might not be where your friends' children are going, because, and that's okay.
Gretchen, that's incredibly generous of you, and I will connect this parent with you if they want to reach out. And one thing that this parent is saying is everyone's just harder for the parents than the child, and in my case, that was not true. So I think too, they're really ready to get to that next place, which I think is really important because not afraid is important. Okay. So this is just going back and you kind of answered this question, but I'd love to get a few. And for those of you who have to leave, we just have 2 more questions, but you will get it all in recording. So please feel free. I think we've got another 2 minutes. This is not crucial, but what makes a good comfort item? In this case, the daughter does not have one special lovey. And so, you know, is it necessary? What do you need to bring or pack?
It's not necessary. It really depends on your child. I mean, you can try in the first day. It said, you know, t-shirt, the shopping list. You can even like say, you know, make an extra key to your house. Say, can you hold this key? You know, they won't know it's an extra key because we need it to get home. So whatever it is that will help them remember and feel like someone's coming back at the end of the day, you know, and if they don't, you know, if they don't need it, that's okay. But you might want, you know, just you can take anything out of your purse that, you know, is not precious and valuable and let them hold it, you know, or a photograph.
Yeah. For me, my child likes we've gone through a Paw Patrol phase. So for you preschool parents out there, it's probably coming. He doesn't need to take it in, but he likes taking it on the journey. And so maybe there's a comfort item that might bubble up where you say, oh, I want to take my doll, but just for the walk or just for the commute. And that becomes something that lives with you for the rest of the day. And then you bring it back, but that could be a source of comfort as well.
Or a book that they like. Could be anything.
Yeah, it was interesting when it was a can of chickpeas for my daughter.
Oh,
it happens. It happens. There's always one. She still likes chickpeas. Okay, this last question is actually really interesting, and I think it's the last one that we're going to answer tonight. And it's a thoughtful question, which is this parent would like to hear more about home to school transition, unrelated to how to separate from one parent to the other, just the transition in general.
Meaning how to get out the door. And
yeah, like what literally like the steps of coming from home to school, I think. I mean, the parent can be more specific with me if they want in the chat. But I feel like what they're talking about is literally like, okay, we just closed the door to home and now we're on our way to school, and that period.
Go ahead.
I'll go first. I would recommend, if possible, on a Saturday, if you have the opportunity to practice the commute, then you will find out the things that you don't know that you needed to know about the transition. For instance, I have a packable stroller, and then I thought I could lift it all up and go through a turnstile, and then my child would be so excited to go under the turnstile. He was not. And then I soon found where the elevator route was so that I could easily go and do the stroller route instead of worrying about all that stuff. So I think you could do like a trial and error to know the things that you didn't realize you needed to know, like an elevator for a commute, or, oh, wow, they really don't want to wear their backpack. So can I put this backpack on? And maybe I need to get a backpack. And maybe this bag isn't the bag that I want to carry. I think it takes a practice run or two to understand your specific logistics and what is important to you to let go of and what is important to you to have.
And I think in this case, I just want to pop in and say that the person has clarified a bit in saying what they really want to know is how to convince their child to leave home and go to school. They did not like going to summer camp, said they didn't want to go, it took forever to convince them. So really, it's not so much I get about the transition, but about how do you leave home and go to school, like talking about, and maybe that's part of what you've already said, which is reading, talking, thinking. But yeah, for a lot of pandemic kids, they've been home for a very long time.
I mean, I also think, to piggyback on practicing. So, today we're going to practice going to school. It's not a school day. So what do we have to do first? So if you live in a elevator building, so, we call it sort of like self-talk, like all the steps. So first we're going to walk out of the house. Then, children really get this. We do this a lot, at Vivvi, so we have to go downstairs, from the elevator. Then how are we going to get to school? Whatever it is, You're going to take the subway, the Uber, whatever works.
It's a combination of self-talk that also distracts them from
Exactly.
all of this. I don't want to go. So my child doesn't want to get out of bed because he's sleeping later. And I have to say, well, can you tell me what you think Miss Kaylee is going to be doing right now? Oh, she's cleaning the toys. Oh, really? Talk to me about that as we come downstairs. Oh, look, there's your police car. It's really like this art of judo distracting. Oh, can you tell me what kind of breakfast you want? And then all of a sudden you've kind of made it out the door and you're there. And then you probably will have to encounter some issues with, I don't want to go in, or some moment of stress, but if you could distract and keep going. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, it's sort of like,
nice.
It's like going in the back door, I like to say,
Yeah.
I love judo parenting. It's a moment of judo parenting in the back door. Thank you guys so much. This was amazing. I want to let everyone go so they can go to bed or have their dinner or just watch a little show before bed. I want to thank Gretchen and Lynn and Vivvi so much. This was great information, full of wisdom, so much to chew on. And I'm excited to be able to give everyone your patented checklist in your books and Lynn's good goodbye, which I wish I had known when I was going, yeah, I'll be here just another minute. I was exactly that parent with the can of chickpeas. You guys, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Well done for sticking out to the end and for the great questions. And you're going to be fine. Everyone's going to love school this year because they have to. we need them to. That's the end of the day. That's the end. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.